The 1746 George II Crown Silver British Coin. The overside features the older laureate and cuirassed bust of King George II. The legend around in Latin script translate, George II by the grace of God. Engraver, John Sigismund Tanner. The reverse side featuring crown cruciform shields, of 4 crown shields that are arranged in a cross shape. These shields represent the United Kingdom's constituent realms, the 3 lions of England, the lion rampant of Scotland, and the Irish harp. With central garter star divided date above, legend around in Latin script. Translates: King of Great Britain, France, and Ireland, defender of the faith, Duke of Brunswick and Lundberg, arch-treasurer, and elector of the Holy Roman Empire. Engraver, Johann Oakes. Coin features: Issuer, United Kingdom. King, George II, 1727 to 1760. Coin type: standard circulation coins. Years: 1743 to 1751. Composition: silver 0.925. Weight: 30.1 gram. Diameter: 38.6 millimeters. Shape: round. Technique: milled. Coin value: $14 depending on the graded and condition of the coin. George II, born November 10th, 1683, Herrenhausen Palace, Hanover, died October 25, 1760, London, was the King of Great Britain and Elector of Hanover from 1727 to 1760. Although he possessed sound political judgment, his lack of self-confidence caused him to rely heavily on his ministers, most notable of whom was Sir Robert Walpole. Robert Walpole was the first Earl of Orford, known between 1725 and 1742 as Sir Robert Walpole, a British Whig statesman who is generally regarded as the de facto, the first Prime Minister of Great Britain, serving from 1721 to 1742. His formal titles included First Lord of the Treasury, Chancellor of the Exchequer, and Leader of the House of Commons. He is the longest-serving Prime Minister in UK history, with a tenure of over 20 years. George Augustus was the only son of the German Prince George Louis, Elector of Hanover, King George I of Great Britain from 1714 to 1727, and Sophia Dorothea of Celle. George Augustus, he grew up in Hanover and married the beautiful and intelligent Caroline of Ansbach. Caroline of Brandenburg-Ansbach was Queen of Great Britain and Ireland and Electress of Hanover from June 11, 1727 until her death in 1737 as the wife of King George II. Upon the accession of his father to the English throne, he was designated Prince of Wales. By 1717, George I and his son, who had for years detested each other, were quarreling openly. The prince's London residence, Leicester House, became the gathering place for a dissident Whig group headed by Walpole and Viscount Charles Townshend. The tepid reconciliation that took place between George I and the prince in 1720 led to the inclusion of Walpole in George I's administration, and Walpole lost the prince's favor when he became one of George I's leading ministers. The prince, upon his accession as George II, would have dismissed Walpole from office had not Caroline intervened on the minister's behalf. During the first 2 decades of his reign, George II followed foreign and domestic developments closely. He supported Walpole's policy of peace and retrenchment and allowed the minister to use crown patronage to build up his majority in Parliament. Walpole won acknowledgement of George's legitimacy from many influential Tories who had been Jacobites, supporters of the exiled Stuart pretender to the English throne. Hence, no politician of prominence deserted George's cause during the abortive Jacobite rebellion of 1745. Nevertheless, opposition to George and Walpole grew as the pattern of George I's reign repeated itself. George II and his son Frederick Louis, Prince of Wales, quarreled, and the prince became a leader of an anti-administration faction. By 1742, these dissidents were strong enough to force Walpole to resign. George II quickly found another mentor in John Carteret, whose haughty ways proved unpopular in political circles. The two men brought England into the War of the Austrian Succession, and in doing so they gave their opponents an opportunity to charge them with subordinating the interests of England to the needs of George's German possessions. In November 1744, George bowed to parliamentary pressure and accepted Carteret's resignation. 15 months later, the king's ministers, by resigning en masse, forced George to accept into office Carteret's chief opponent, William Pitt. During the last decade of his life, George II's interest in politics declined. He was little more than an observer of the events of the 7 Years' War 1756-1763 against France, for it was Pitt who devised the brilliant strategy that eventually brought about a British victory. George died suddenly and was succeeded by his grandson King George III. Throughout his life, George II maintained a passion for anything military. He displayed courage while fighting the French at the Battle of Dettingen in 1743, the last time a British king appeared on the battlefield, and he organized each day with the precision of a drill sergeant. His other major interest was music. He loved opera and was a patron of the German composer George Friedrich Handel. Timeline for King George II. 1727. George II succeeds his father, George I. 1729. Charles Wesley founds the Methodists at Lincoln College, Oxford. 1732. A royal charter is granted for the founding of Georgia in America. 1732. Lord Frederick North born. 1734. Jethro Tull publishes essays on improving farming, including the use of the seed drill. 1737. Death of George's wife, Queen Caroline. 1738. John and Charles Wesley start the Methodist movement in Britain. 1739. Dick Turpin, highwayman, hanged at York. 1739. Britain goes to war with Spain over Captain Jenkins' ear, claimed to have been cut off in a skirmish at sea. 1740 to 1748. The War of Austrian Succession breaks out in Europe. 1742. Walpole resigns as Prime Minister. 1743. George leads troops into battle at Dettingen in Bavaria. 1745. Charles Edward Stuart, Bonnie Prince Charlie, lands in Scotland and raises his flag for the restoration of the Stuarts. 2,000 Jacobites enter Edinburgh. Scottish victory at Prestonpans. Charles and his Jacobite army march south into England and reach Derby before turning back. 1746. Scots defeated at the Battle of Culloden. Duke of Cumberland, the king's second son, ruthlessly represses the rebels and Scottish traditions. 1748. Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle ends the War of Austrian Succession. 1751. Death of Frederick, Prince of Wales. His son George becomes heir to the throne. 1752. Britain adopts the Georgian calendar. January 1st replaces March 25th as the first day of the year. 1757. Britain declares war against France. Start of the 7 Years' War. 1757. Robert Clive wins the Battle of Plassey and secures the Indian province of Bengal for Britain. 1757. William Pitt becomes Prime Minister. 1759. Wolfe captures Quebec from the French and establishes British supremacy in Canada. 1759. First botanical gardens laid out at Kew. 1760. George II dies.